All right, folks, how you doing? Welcome back. So we're doing something a little bit different in this video. This is from a book called Dark Mission: The Secret History of NASA, and we're focusing on Chapter 6, New Mars Global Surveyor Images of Cydonia. Disclaimer, as always, under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. So we begin with a new contract. On November 7th, 1996, NASA had already launched its next mission. Mars Global Surveyor was fitted with a slightly upgraded version of Malin camera. Malin Space Science Systems had won a new contract. Attempts by the military team that ran the Clementine mission to the moon to bid on the contract were rejected. The Clementine team's camera was superior. An old colleague. So NASA asked Dr. John Brandenburg, an old colleague of Hoagland's from the early independent Mars investigations, to present the camera a second time to JPL's open bidding process. The decision was then abruptly assigned to a selection committee run by JPL, who selected Malin and his camera.
Who makes the decisions?
Well, a committee would make a decision in this case.
No. One man. You go high enough, you always come to one man. Who?
Yes.
Dr. Carl Pilcher. So JPL, it seemed, really wanted Malin to be the cameraman for the next Mars mission, with Malin's hostility toward the Cydonia issue clouding everything around the mission. Stan McDaniel's SPSR organization arranged a clandestine meeting with NASA's Dr. Carl Pilcher, the acting director of Solar System Studies, in November of 1997. Two groups in NASA. So at the meeting, which was attended by McDaniel, Carlotto, and Brandenburg, among others, Pilcher feigned interest and promised that Cydonia would be imaged at every opportunity. In a report made by Carlotto at a Brazilian UFO expo, there was this one intriguing nugget, quote, "There are two groups in NASA. One group believes that UFO researchers are all wrong, and they want to prove it, so they want to take these pictures to prove that you're wrong. The other group, and our sense is that it's a small but growing group within NASA, believes that we have some interesting data and they want to take a closer look at it." Coast to Coast AM. So Hoagland used his appearances on Coast to Coast AM to ratchet up the pressure on NASA to formally commit to rephotographing Cydonia. He argued that Malin should not decide what would be photographed and should be put on record about Mars observers' disappearance. And by the way, if you haven't checked it out in the podcast section, look at the what I've already posted, the interviews between Art Bell and Richard Hoagland. Definitely check them out. One from 1994, one from 1996, and the one from 1995 I'm currently working on. That will be posted fairly soon, within the next few weeks. But definitely check out the interviews between Art Bell and Richard Hoagland. They're very eye-opening, and I've edited them down into digestible little sound bites, only about 30 seconds to 2.5, 3 minutes long, I think was the longest. They're very easily digestible. They're very, eye-opening. Definitely check it out. The Malin interview. So as the public pressure mounted, Malin took to the airwaves himself in an effort to retain exclusive control over his instrument. Malin chose to give an interview to Linda Moulton Howe. He expressed indignance that anyone could view him as being responsible for what happened to the Mars Observer. By the way, it's the public that actually paid for the Malin technology, according to the book. I edited that bit out, but that's why it's in inverted commas, his instrument, because it's publicly funded. Winning the lottery. So he also went to great lengths to claim that getting an image of an object as small as the face, which is about 2.5 by 2 kilometers, by the way, was an iffy proposition at best, comparing it to winning the lottery. We, of course, knew this to be baloney. The targeting capability of the MGS camera was exceptional. MGS just means Mars Global Surveyor, by the way, if you're not up on the acronym. Lottery comments. Malin's team had devised an excellent targeting software suite that enabled them to pre-select a face-sized target with ease. In the words of Stanley McDaniel, hitting a specific target the size of the face is, quote, about as difficult as hitting a door with a baseball from a distance of about 1 foot. In other words, it's incredibly easy. A long history, so Malin had made his feelings plain. Quote, no one in the planetary science community would waste their time doing a scientific study of the nature advocated by those who believe that the face on Mars is artificial. Dr. Malin had a long history of obfuscation when it came to the face in Cydonia, and that's putting it mildly, as we'll see. Malin's megaphone. So during the Case for Mars conference in 1981, DiPietro and Molnar were audibly assaulted by Malin. Every time anyone approached the table and started to look at the images of the face, Malin picked up a megaphone, creating so much noise that he was able to drive away many a curious conference goer. Okay, that is just straight up harassment. As far back as 1981, Malin, probably the only reason he was at the conference was to harass DiPietro and Molnar. That is just straight up harassment. That's bullying. That's, I'm pretty sure, illegal. They should have had him tossed out, throw his ass out the door. But unbelievable. Absolutely unfucking believable. This is the guy whose technology, you're dependent on. This is the guy who's got a 6-month probation over the images coming from Mars that he decides whether the public will see or not. This guy? Are you fucking kidding? This is the guy you want who has a monopoly, the Malin monopoly, over the images coming from Mars? Fucking unbelievable. NASA finally appeared to cave, as you'll see. In March 1998, after receiving literally tens of thousands of faxes from Art Bell's Coast to Coast AM audience demanding that NASA take new photos at the first opportunity, NASA finally caved. The Mars Surveyor Project agreed to, quote, announce these Cydonia imaging opportunities in advance and then, quote, post the resultant images on the internet. According to the specific terms of the agreement, quote, we expect that there will be widespread scientific and public interest in the new results from Mars. As such, there is a strong commitment by NASA and the MGS scientists to release data to the public on a timely basis.
I don't believe this. I will never watch your show, buy any of your products, or break if I see you crossing the street. Wow, that's cold. Dear sleaze merchant. Oh, come on, that hurts. Gentlemen, the screwballs have spoken.
The fax and email campaign. The fax and email campaign generated by Hoagland and Bell paid off a few weeks later when NASA announced its first Cydonia imaging opportunity for April 5th, 1998. In the anxious days leading up to April, NASA released even more details on the targets planned for the Science Phasing Orbit images. In keeping with Malin's previous statements, the announcement maintained the idea that actually imaging a specific target would be problematic.
If you can believe that, you can believe it, innit?
Heading into the April 4 weekend, NASA announced that the Cydonia image would be released on Monday morning, April 6th. Now, I read this way after I posted the 1994 and 1996 interviews on my channel. I read this only like 2 days ago. And this is why I say that the Coast to Coast AM interviews are vital. Absolutely vital. The interviews between Art Bell and Richard Hoagland. And I haven't even listened to all of them. I think this interview that's specifically referred to in this presentation, I haven't even listened to this one yet. I've only posted 2, the 94 and the 96 one, and there's the 95 one still to be posted, like I say. I'm going to have a look after I record this for the 1997 or 98, because I think this one would have been in 1998. I'm not quite sure about the timeline on that, but I'll have a look after I record this and after I put it up, because I'll tell you what, they're an absolute treasure. They're worth their weight in gold. The Hoagland Bell interviews, they're fantastic. And I recognize their value before I even read that in the book. But that only underscores the point. That only punctuates the point of how important they are. Absolutely invaluable. So here we go, an essentially blank image. Hands up who's surprised. Oh, let's see, no one. Yeah. We waited over the weekend for the image to be taken. On the morning of the 6th, we all huddled around our computers, anxiously awaiting the image release. Precisely at 10:30 a.m., the link appeared on our screens. The image that was released was essentially blank. Was this a joke? Hoagland's phone. So even though the image was taken in the full light of midday, it was virtually blank. Or black, sorry. Whoa, it's about the same thing, actually. There's just nothing there. If you go into the book, it actually shows you the real image that was put up on the computer screen when you hit the link, or when you did back then. I mean, when the folk were gathered around the computer terminals, when they pressed the link to see the image, it was just completely blank. The image is in the book. In fact, hang on. I'll show you. There you go. That was the image. That one. Right there. That's exactly the image that was posted. See it? That was the image that NASA promised. But can't speak, can't lie. So even though the image was taken in the full light of midday, it was virtually black. You saw that. Hoagland's phone began to ring off the hook. He simply responded that he was disappointed with the quality of the image. He urged caution until we saw if NASA would release a processed version later. The processed version. So that processed version came a few hours later from JPL's Mission Image Processing Laboratory, or MIPL. Contrary to his previous claims about hitting the lottery, Malin was able to nail the face on his first official attempt. Details of the right side were visually compressed, hidden behind the nose. JPL spin doctors. So the image gave the impression of a flat, blank desert landscape. Within an hour of the release of an image that they surely knew was far below the quality of what could be obtained, JPL spin doctors had spread out to the various news media, pronouncing the face to be natural. Any of their employees subsequently found to have made false statements or unscientific arguments could be dismissed as loose cannons. This meant that there could never be a second McDaniel report proving NASA's complicity in a campaign of misinformation and ridicule. Oh, no, surely you jest. I've got the McDaniel report right here, actually. Here. There it is. We'll get into that in the future. Get into all these sources. The 6 o'clock news. So the 6 o'clock news went with the MIPL image because, of course, they did. They were almost uniformly hostile. Planetary scientist Dan Rather pronounced it as a pile of rocks. NBC's Tom Brokaw called the image proof of what we already knew. Only CNN's John Holliman was sympathetic, saying that the independent researchers needed more time to properly evaluate the image. That's whose image you see there on the right-hand side. The TJP enhancement. So within 3 minutes of the 6 o'clock newscast signing off, a second image suddenly appeared on the various NASA, SSS, and JPL sites. The TJP, Timothy J. Parker enhancement was a significant improvement over the earlier MIPL image. It contained far more detail. You can see it right there on the right-hand side. It's in the book, actually. I'll look it up. There you go. Same page as before. But you can see the difference. Right there. Like I say, this book is worth its weight in gold. Definitely get this book. You should get all of them anyway, but brilliant, fantastic book. I'm really glad I got this one. Anyway, let's get back to it here. Bell's show, so his version, confirmed many face-like features, but it came too late. Only after the major news organizations had broadcast their reports did this considerably improved image come to light. That night on Bell's show, Hoagland tried to explain all this to an obviously disappointed public. The TJP version, so Bell considered it a joke that the horrible Mipple version had been the only one available as the TV news had gone to air, and asked Hoagland why it might take another 7 hours for Malin's team to release their TJP version. It should have only taken about 30 minutes to produce. Yeah, should have taken 30 minutes. In reality, it took 7 hours. 7 hours!
Bet a lot of people make that mistake. No.
This was so obviously a wind-up. This was on purpose. 100% to embarrass, those who believed in the faith, like a Richard Hoagland. The true pioneers of the space scientific community, the ones who are really interested in it. It's obviously a setup. Such an obvious, weaselly, passive-aggressive move. So obvious that this was a setup. So obvious. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And that's Timothy J. Parker there on the right. So salute to him, for, making this image out of his own initiative. I don't think anyone actually asked him to do it. In the book, it actually goes into more detail that he did it using technology that was nowhere near as advanced as what Malin had. And he did it basically in his own time, I believe. Nobody asked him to even do it. He just did it, and he did it using, software which was nowhere near as advanced. So there you go. That guy deserves a round of applause. That guy deserves a salute. Absolutely. So the Catbox version. Bell summed up the Mipple image by saying that it reminded him of a pattern his kitty might scratch up in her litter box. Mipple image would forever be known as the Catbox version of the face on Mars. And look at that. That's a cute little kitty, isn't it?
Behold the box of mystery. The cat goes in right here.
And there's Art Bell, who is no longer with us, unfortunately. He passed away a few years ago. In the John Lear book, which is up on the shelf there, it says that Art Bell actually committed suicide. In fact, if you give me a little minute, Okay, so this is from Truth, Can You Handle It? The John Lear Chronicles, Volume 1. Where's Volume 2, by the way? That's what I want to know. It seems to have not been written or published. But anyway, here's what it says. The truth about Art Bell. A couple of days ago, I got a call from a close friend who released me from a promise to keep everything I knew about Art Bell's passing a secret. I don't know exactly what has changed, but my friend released me from the secret, so here goes. My friend Art Bell committed suicide April 13th, 2018. Art killed himself with an overdose of prescription painkillers, which included oxycodone and hydrocodone. I think that's how you say it. The sedative diazepam and the muscle relaxant carisoprodol, I don't know, in the system, according to Clark County Coroner John Fundenberg. You and I will never know the final thoughts that drove Art to take his own life, but I suspect it had something to do with an affair he was having that somebody was threatening to expose. Art left a recording in his own voice, a will that outlined 40 specific instructions about what he wanted done after his passing. Art left well over $10 million in his estate. Please don't ask me for any additional information because I don't have any. Art and I weren't all that close after 9/11 because he had trouble accepting that it was an inside job, but Art had always given me credit for starting him on the road of the paranormal, which led him to millions of listeners worldwide. John Lear, July 25th, 2020. So apologies about butchering the names of the drugs that he was taking. They're all there. You can see it on the page. I don't know how you pronounce these drugs. Was it oxycodone, hydrocodone, or codeine, diazepam, carisoprodol. Sorry, I'm butchering it. But I know, but that's what's written here anyway. So that's what happened to Art Bell. He committed suicide apparently in 2018 because he was having an affair and it was going to be exposed, and he probably thought he was going to lose his. I don't know. But it's a huge shame because Art Bell was fantastic. He was a great interviewer, and I know I'm going on broken record, but really check out the Art Bell interviews with Dick Hoagland and also Graham Hancock as well. They're pretty good. I've started listening to those on the bus on the way in as well. The Hancock interviews with Art Bell, they're also pretty eye-opening, but in a different way because, they're quite different from each other, Hoagland and Hancock. I didn't know they were actually friends in real life. I imagine they still are. Picked that up in one of the interviews between Hoagland and Art Bell. In fact, I can't remember which interview it was. Was it the 1995 one?
What we have here, of course, is the major question: why are they lying? I'm coming to believe, Art, that Brookings is only a partial answer. And for the rest of the answer, I would like you to make me a promise that you're going to read a book by a friend of mine, Graham Hancock.
I've got it here.
Called Fingerprints of the Gods.
Oh, you were going to get me a number?
I have that number.
All right, then I will hold you on the line after the program.
I have his number, and you can reach him at that number, and I got another number for you.
All right.
I talked to him. I've asked him if he'll talk to you. He would love to.
Good.
Graham Hancock is a former reporter for the London Economist, which is about as mainstream as you can get.
That's right.
He is also a reporter for the London Sunday Times.
Right.
Which is about as stiff as you can get.
It certainly is.
Makes the New York Times look a bit tabloid by comparison. This man has done a phenomenal piece of independent research, has spent about 5 years putting together a thesis documented in this book that basically this planet has been host to prior high-tech civilizations, plural.
It's called Fingerprints of the Gods.
Of the Gods,
yes.
Published by Crown, 1995. There is an elegant confluence, a convergence between what Graham has figured out with colleagues like Robert Bivol, who has published a book called The Orion Mystery that I commend to everybody's attention, that was published also by Crown last year, and what Hancock has figured out in the book published this year.